The sky over Mercy General Hospital had turned an ominous gray by mid-afternoon, heavy clouds clinging low as if they too were weighed down by the sorrow below. A damp breeze whispered through the empty streets, carrying with it the scent of rain and something else, an invisible tension, thick and pressing, as though the city itself was holding its breath. Outside the hospital, the storm had already begun in a different form, one that wasn't carried by the wind or rain, but by the heartache of a small, trembling figure standing alone on the cracked asphalt. Sophie Turner, a girl of 6, clutched the folds of her sky-blue dress as if they were a lifeline. Her face, streaked with dirt and tears, glistened in the dim light, and her small shoulders shook with the weight of a fear no child should ever know. Her voice, fragile and cracking, tried to reach out, but it was swallowed by the hum of traffic and the cruel, mocking laughter of 3 men stationed at the hospital gate. Her tiny hand pointed desperately toward the glass doors, where her mother, Laura, pale and barely able to stand, was being held back by the cold, indifferent men. Sophie's voice pierced the air anyway, small and fragile yet filled with urgency. "They won't let my mommy in," she cried, the words sharp and earnest, echoing a plea that was too often unheard in a world rushing by. Sophie's mother had been struggling for months. After a severe infection left her weak, barely able to breathe without effort, she had worked double shifts at a local diner, scraping together every cent to pay for medication. That morning, her body finally gave out. She collapsed at home, leaving Sophie no choice but to act. The little girl grabbed her mother's hand and ran into the street, her heart pounding in rhythm with the fear that consumed her, and begged for help. But fate, with its unkind sense of timing, ensured that the hospital's main entrance was closed for renovations. The only gate open was manned by 3 men, rough, cold, and entirely unfeeling, whose eyes reflected nothing but annoyance at the living, breathing human being struggling before them. Sophie tugged at their sleeves, pleading, trying to explain the urgency. But the men, tall and imposing, treated her as nothing more than a bothersome insect. The first, wearing a gray sleeveless hoodie with a cigarette hanging from his lips, waved her off with a dismissive flick of his hand. The second, leaning lazily against the wall, pulled out his phone, recording the scene as if her fear were mere entertainment. The third, larger and heavier, with a red flannel shirt stretched over his broad frame, muttered cruelly that people like her mother could wait their turn. All the while, Laura's breathing grew more labored. Her knees buckled once, twice, and then she crumpled against the glass, clutching her stomach, eyes wide with panic and pain. Sophie screamed for help, her voice raw and piercing, but the few bystanders nearby averted their gaze, pretending not to notice. For a moment, it seemed that fate would let the darkness win. And then, in the midst of despair, came a sound that cut through the tension like thunder, the deep, rolling roar of motorcycle engines. Sophie's head snapped toward the sound. 5 motorcycles were slowly rolling down the street, each one a black, roaring shadow against the gray afternoon. The noise startled the men, though they barely registered it at first. But as the riders came to a halt just a few meters away, the engines fell silent, replaced by the metallic clicking of cooling machinery and the heavy, measured thud of boots on asphalt. At the front of the group stood a man who seemed carved from iron and experience, his presence commanding attention without a single word. Ryder Callan, in his late 40s, weathered by the years and battles he had survived, surveyed the scene with sharp, unwavering eyes. His beard was streaked with gray, his arms inked with marks of memory and loss, and the black leather vest he wore bore 2 simple patches, Hell's Angels and RL. CHLLS. His gaze swept over the chaos, a child crying, a mother falling, 3 men standing in thoughtless arrogance. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause, waiting for him to act. Sophie, her tears still flowing, stepped forward. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling but insistent. "Those men won't let my mommy in the hospital." Ryder crouched before her, his leather creaking softly, meeting her gaze. The reflection of fear and hope shimmered in his mirrored sunglasses, and for the first time that afternoon, someone was truly looking at her. Without a word, Ryder stood. The change in his expression was subtle, but it carried weight, authority, calm, and an unmistakable determination. He handed his gloves to one of his men, then began to walk toward the hospital. The others followed, spreading out in a formation that was as fluid as it was intimidating, like a stormfront advancing across an open field. The 3 men guarding the gate froze, their laughter dying mid-breath, the ease of their cruelty faltering under the weight of Ryder's silent command. "Move," he said, low and steady, each syllable carrying the weight of finality. His voice was gravelly, worn by years, but it demanded obedience. The man in the hoodie sneered, attempting to speak, but Ryder's gaze cut him down faster than any words could. Behind him, his companions shifted closer, their tattooed arms gleaming in the weak sunlight, their expressions unreadable. Mace, the bald giant among them, rested one hand on a motorcycle, silent yet tense, every muscle ready. A younger rider, long brown hair falling past his shoulders, folded his arms and watched, patient and unyielding. The thug, sensing the futility, stepped aside, muttering excuses, unable to meet Ryder's piercing eyes. Ryder turned to Laura, still kneeling against the glass, and gently lifted her arm over his shoulder. "She's going in," he said softly. The automatic doors of Mercy General slid open, and the staff rushed forward without hesitation. Nurses appeared with stretchers, doctors shouted orders, and Sophie ran alongside her mother, gripping her hand until they disappeared behind the curtains of the emergency ward. Outside, Ryder and his men remained, silent sentinels under the stormy sky, their presence a quiet guarantee of safety. When Ryder finally returned to Sophie, she ran into his arms, sobbing, but this time it was the kind of cry that comes from relief rather than fear. "Thank you," she whispered, her words trembling. Ryder's lips curved into a faint, approving smile as he brushed her hair back. "You're braver than most grown men I know," he told her. He didn't linger, his purpose had been fulfilled. Before mounting his bike, he placed a folded $20 bill in her hand. On it, written hastily in pen, were 3 simple words, "For Mom's medicine." The roar of motorcycles filled the air once more as Ryder and his group rode away, leaving behind a scene etched into the memories of everyone who witnessed it. It wasn't the leather jackets, the tattoos, or the engines that would linger in their minds. It was the simple, undeniable truth that even in a world often deaf to suffering, courage and compassion could appear from the most unexpected places. Later that evening, as Laura slowly awoke in her hospital bed, Sophie sat by her side, clutching the folded bill like a precious treasure. "Who helped us?" Laura asked softly, her voice still weak. Sophie smiled, her eyes shining with the clarity only a child possesses. "Angels, Mommy," she said. "Hell's angels. And for anyone watching, anyone who believes that the world can still surprise you with goodness, it was a moment that reaffirmed faith in humanity. Sometimes, it takes only a single act of courage to change the course of someone's life, to remind us all that even in the darkest hours, there is light." That day, 5 men rode in like the storm itself, not to conquer, but to protect. They reminded a little girl that fear can be met with strength, that despair can be met with action, and that kindness, though rare, is always worth believing in. Sophie's mother survived, her strength returning with each careful breath, and Sophie learned that heroism can come in unexpected forms. In a world that often turns its back, that afternoon, 5 men turned toward it, and in doing so, changed a life forever. And sometimes, all it takes is one person, one action, one decision to prove that humanity, at its core, is still capable of incredible goodness. That day at Mercy General Hospital, the storm outside mirrored the storm of fear and uncertainty in the heart of a little girl, but it ended with hope, courage, and the quiet, undeniable truth that heroes exist, even in leather and steel, riding where they are most needed.